How's it going, guys? Okay, so last time we talked about whole steps and half steps, the two first most fundamental kinds of intervals that are in Western music. And this time, going off of that, I kind of wanted to look at more technique oriented things, talk about fingerings, actually how to implement the fingerings when we're playing these scales, and maybe even look at the minor scale, which is the other, major minor. That's the big dichotomy in Western music. So we figured out what a major scale was. We'll figure out what a minor scale is. But first, we got to figure out how to play a major scale. So let's just first review our series of whole steps and half steps. Remember, it's just looking at start on C, then look at the black keys. That kind of tells you where things are at. Two black keys, so we got two whole steps, and then between E and F there's nothing, so we got a half step there. Three black keys, so we got three whole steps, and then between B and C, bringing us to that octave, finishing the scale, there's no black note, so we have that last half step. So two whole steps, one half step, three whole steps, and one more half step. Now, we got to talk about actually how to play this thing. So, in music, depending on what instrument you have, there's going to be different types of fingerings. A lot of instruments, you don't use your thumb because your thumb actually just has to hold the instrument. But with a piano, one of the great things about it is that we don't only use all of our fingers, but we use both hands at once to activate different pitches. With, say, a guitar or a violin, one hand needs to specify which pitches get activated, and the other hand does the activation. But with piano, every button is already tuned exactly where we want it to be, so we can use both hands, all fingers at the same time. That is what makes piano so cool, so unique, and so sort of all-encompassing. It's a good instrument for composers and for just songwriters in general. So let's see what we got here. So starting on middle C, we're going to use 1. Now 1 is our thumb. Whenever we want to figure out what a fingering is, you just got to count down your fingers with your thumbs being 1. Whether it's left hand or right hand doesn't matter. Thumbs are 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's it. So thumb is 1, index finger is 2, middle finger is 3, ring finger is 4, and pinky is 5. That being said, let's look at a right hand scale right now. Okay, so I'm going to put my thumb, my first finger, on C. So it's 1 on C, and then 2 on D, and then 3 on E. So my hand doesn't have to move for these first 3 notes. It's right where it needs to be. And I would line it up so each finger has its own white key. There needs to be 1 finger on each key of the scale, no more, no less. So these first couple of pitches here aren't too bad. And if you really are just starting with piano, it may be a little difficult to move your fingers independently. So just get this going, go up, go down, keep maybe do them in a different order like that. And you can just play around even with the top section here. This isn't part of the scale, these top couple notes here, but just for the cause of finger independence, you just play around, see if you can get it so it feels a little bit natural, because it does feel counterintuitive at first for most people. So after 1, 2, and 3, we got to do something kind of fancy. We have to move our first finger to this F that's coming up, this F right here. So how am I going to do that? A lot of my beginning students try to do like this overhand thing where they kind of, you can't, that's not going to work. Looks like a small animal is just keeled over or something. We don't want that. The rule of thumb, excuse the pun, with moving fingers is that the thumb goes under and then the other fingers go over the thumb. It's always on this plane. We never move, we never like flip, flip, flip. So that being said, when I'm doing the scale, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, thumb comes under to the F like that. Boom, right there. And then the rest of my hand comes with it. So it's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to sneak under 1 on F. And then, if you'll notice, each finger is exactly where it needs to be to complete the scale. So now I can just go, and I'm done. So it's 1, 2, 3, underhand with the thumb here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then coming down is the exact same thing, just going the opposite way. So if my hand is here, I'm going to keep it here for the descent. So I finished on C, and then I'm going to come down. Right? That was easy enough. I just moved everything down. But now I got to get my middle finger, my third finger, back on that E. Because it needs to be the same both ways. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. It has to be it's the same fingering no matter what direction you're going in. So once I've come down here, again, everything is on this plane always and forever. So it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The third finger comes over the thumb onto E. And we finish the scale like that. So if you'll notice, there's two different positions that my hand is in with the scale. One is when I'm here, and then my thumb comes under, and then I'm here. So what I like to do a lot with scales to help them make more sense and be easy to remember is something called blocking. Now, this isn't necessarily going to sound great, but it's really good for memory. Because sometimes when you just play it one note at a time, kind of what I was talking about last time, it's harder to remember just note, 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 note. And specifically for scales, it's hard to remember, like, which finger comes next. But if you can put them into these blocks, into these sort of chord clumps, then it's going to be a lot easier to remember. And especially for this scale in particular, there's only two different sections. So there's this one, right? So I played these three, right? Bum, bum, bum. So these three all play together. And then I moved my thumb up, and then all of this plays at once. That's position 2. So position 1, position 2. That's the whole scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then coming down, C, B, A, G, F. Middle finger, third finger comes down to E, E, D, C. So that's it. This chord, and then this chord, and then back down. We just play them independently. Right? So I'd practice first blocking them like so, just so your brain can remember which fingers go where. This section, and then that section. And then I'd practice doing them separately and making sure we have that underhand motion of the thumb. And then when we come down, having that overhand motion with the third finger to the E. So that is a right hand major scale. And a lot of the other major scales are going to be the same thing, actually. But we're just going to be focusing on C for now. Okay, so now left hand, it's funny how this works out. The right hand major scale and the left hand major scale are, generally speaking, going to be mirror images of each other in terms of the fingering. The right hand was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left hand happens to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So technically, if I played the left hand going down and the right hand going up, they would share the same fingering. I'm not going to do that now because I have to have one hand free to hold the phone. But if down the line we get to being able to do that, then we can do that. And it's kind of a neat thing to remember. So that being said, if I started with my first finger in my right hand, I'm going to start with my fifth finger in my left hand, which is my pinky. So pinky goes on C. And actually, a nice visual aid is to block these two things as well. So with my right hand, it was this group of 3 and then this group of 5. And so following the fact that they're mirror images of each other, the left hand is going to start with a group of 5 and then a group of 3. It's exactly the same thing backwards. So this one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Third finger comes up to A. 3, 2, 1. And then when we come down, 1, 2, 3. Thumb comes down to G, underhand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So left hand is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Middle finger, third finger, overhand to A. 3, 2, 1. Coming down, 1, 2, 3. Thumb comes underhand to G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is why it's tough to play things hands together, because the fingerings are going to be, as we said, they're the complete opposites of each other. So it might be actually easier to play left hand going down and right hand going up at the same time because they will share the same fingerings. But if we play left hand going up and right hand going up as well, if we play them in similar motion, in parallel motion, then their fingerings are completely different. If I'm playing the 1 in my right hand, my left hand is playing 5. If I'm playing the 2 in my right hand, the left hand is playing 4. If I'm playing the 3 in my right hand, the left hand is playing 3. That's one of the few times I actually line up, but you get what I'm saying. And the switches happen at different times. In the right hand, when I'm playing 1, 2, 3, the switch happens right here. The switch to the next position happens right going from E to F, right there. But in the left hand, the switch happens much later on. It happens from going from G to A. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3. So those position changes happen at alternating times. So the only thing I would say is that once you feel really solid with playing these scales hands separately, then I would very, very slowly begin to put them together, because it is going to be a bit of a mental workout. All right, now that we got that going, let's check out a minor scale. There's two different types of relationships between major and minor, at least two main types of relationships between major and minor. There is something called parallel and something called relative. If I were to play a C major scale and then a minor scale starting on that same pitch, C, that's minor, because in the C minor scale, there is an E flat, there's a flat, and there's a B flat. There's 3 flats, count them. And as we know, in the C major scale, there's no sharps or flats. It's all white notes. So they don't share the same group of pitches, but they start on the same pitch. They have the same starting pitch. That's when they're called parallel. However, relative is when they share the same exact group of pitches, but the starting note is different. So check this out. If I play C, right, we know it's C, D, E. Remember that switch to the thumb on F? F, G, A, B, C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All the white notes, right? The parallel minor of any key is always going to be the 6th note. So if we count these notes, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5. This might be confusing because there's lots of numbers in music, and all these numbers mean different things. So for fingerings, when we talk about 1, 2, 3, and then you switch it, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're referring to just the fingers. Now when I'm counting these pitches, we're referring to just the pitches. So you literally just count them up. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7. These are called scale degrees. There's usually always 7 scale degrees in a scale. C, the first one being the first, number 1, D2, E3, F4, G is 5. You just count them, right? A is 6, B is 7, and then back to 1. Or 8, and that's where we get that term octave from, because it's the 8th in the series. But usually you'd refer to all the C's just as a 1, because you'd start counting them over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. However many octaves you want to go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can go as long as you want. So a good thing to remember is that the relative minor of any major scale is going to start on the 6th scale degree. So let's find that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is going to be A in this circumstance. Remember, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6. Just count them up. So we're going to start on A. Let's see. And again, relative minor, they share all the same notes. So that means I'm going to go from A to A with all the white notes. There's an A minor scale. Now, let's look. It sounds very different already, right? It sounds like a completely different scale. That's because it is. Remember, the sequence of whole steps and half steps for a major scale was 2 whole steps, 1 half step, 3 whole steps, and 1 more half step. Let's look at the series of whole steps and half steps for a minor scale. Again, this is drawing back to that same point in the previous video, in the previous lesson. They share the exact same group of pitches, but because our home pitch has been changed to A now, the sequence of intervals is going to be vastly different. And that's what's accounting for the change in sound of the scale. So here's A. A is right there. So between A and B, we got this black note. So we have a whole step, right? Between A and B, we got 1 whole step. But already, right off the bat, between B and C, there's no black note. There's no note at all between B and C. So this is a half step. This is the most fundamental thing between major and minor. The difference between a whole step between scale degrees 2 and 3, or a half step between scale degrees 2 and 3. If I were to do an A major scale, we need those 2 whole steps right off the bat, right? So I would do A to B, there's a whole step. Now I need my second whole step. So I'd make this C sharp. I got to skip over one note to make it a whole step. So it would be B to C sharp. That lifted third, that's the, they always say when you're little that, the major scale is the happy scale and the minor scale is the sad scale, because the fact that we have this whole step here, this larger pitch, feels a little more hopeful, a little more energetic. That whole step right there. But as soon as we have minor, and what really defines what we know as minor is this half step between 2 and 3. That makes it darker, it pulls it down, it's heavier. It's sad, right? That's what they always say. So, whole step, half step. There it is. Okay, so we have a whole step, and then between B and C, 2 and 3, we have a half step. And so now, between 3 and 4, between C and D, we have a whole step. Between D and E, you'll see we have another whole step. Between E and F, we have a half step. That's 5 and 6. Whole step between 6 and 7. Whole step between 7 and 1. So we have one whole step, a half step, 2 whole steps, a half step, and 2 more whole steps. Very different shape, and that's why it sounds so different. Going off of the previous video again, if you can memorize that sequence of whole steps and half steps for a minor scale, you can figure out a minor scale starting on any pitch. It's the same thing. You just got to remember that sequence of intervals. You got your minor scale. Any questions? Ask them away in the comments and I will respond. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.